I'm very honored to be requested to be the moderator for this part of the program, which is sponsored by the Steering Committee for the International Day for Education for Global Citizenship. And my colleagues on that steering committee are He and Scott Carlin, and the Coalition for Global Citizenship. And we're thrilled that Daniel Terrell is here, who's been really the driving force behind that very exciting initiative. The Steering Committee on the International Day for Education for Global Citizenship is a very unique endeavor at the UN because it's a consortium or collaboration between the General Assembly or member states, and the Republic of Korea has been a major leader in that initiative. UN agencies like UNESCO and UNICEF, and the NGO community, specifically the Department of Public Information NGO Executive Committee, which I'm a director on, and also the ECOSOC community, and several of us here represent ECOSOC NGOs. So usually these kinds of initiatives happen in a silo where one group sponsors it and tries to encourage the others, but we've really been working, I think it's 2 or 3 years, on this initiative together. And so we're delighted that we can have this event and that so many of you have chosen to spend the morning with us. Jeff Huffines, David Kirschbaum from Nonviolence International, Roger Sherman, John Berman. We're just delighted to have all of you share. Irina from the NGO Committee on Mental Health to share this exciting morning. We are going to present the program using the UNESCO concept of 3 domains, which I pointed out in nursing. We plan our intervention using a very similar model. The first aspect is cognitive, and so we're going to present material that hopefully we'll think about and will be very cerebral and intellectual, and at the same time, we have presentations that will elicit the social, emotional, or we might call affective domain. So we're all going to feel things that maybe we haven't felt before and really come together in spirit and feeling. And then the very important aspect at the end is behavioral or psychomotor, because we want to have this experience have an effect of action. We hope that each of you will think of a way to bring back to your community to do something to support education for global citizenship. And the last part of our program will include a presentation by Scott and He about how to do that and what education for global citizenship really looks like. We have a couple of changes, as is life. Our keynote speaker, Omar Ba, is in the hospital, and he's recovering, we hope, from a situation. And he was supposed to leave tomorrow to teach with Harvard Medical School program in global mental health refugee trauma, which is held in Italy. And he's unfortunately not going to be able to do that either. We will make his story available to you. I think he's calling in so that he can watch from his bed. Were you able to make that connection, Scott? And I think his story is one of incredible resilience. He was a journalist in the Gambia and was critical of the government and tortured and held captive and had a really heroic, arduous journey. His spirit is indomitable, and he's now in Rhode Island, the director, the founder and CEO and executive director of the Refugee Dream Program. He's a consultant to the governor of Rhode Island and serves on many commissions advocating for mental health and refugee rights. Unfortunately, the body takes a beating, and we're not sure if this has anything to do with his past experience, but I'm sure that he'll be here again if he's not able to sign in and be with us, and we have a wonderful substitute speaker. So, with no further ado, I'm going to introduce my newfound friend and colleague, Laura Sims, who's an international expert in narrative work and storytelling, and she's responsible for the social, emotional, affective domain of this program, and we're very pleased and excited and fortunate to have you here.
Thank you. I'm going to stand, and we have this pole right in the middle, so if anyone needs to move, there are chairs, and please be comfortable and make sure that you can see. And there is water because it's going to be a very hot day. Yes.
She's fine.
Well, it moved.
You're fine.
Okay. All right. Going to do something that I haven't done in 40 years. I'm going to read what I'm saying. I want to make sure that within the short time that we have, that I can make some salient and important points for us. And because of the sad absence of two of our speakers today, we will have extra time, which might be a small blessing for us at the end, for your questions to talk about storytelling and how you have used it or how you can use it. So first and foremost, I want to thank this amazing team of people who made this day possible, and all of you who have come to share with us this exquisite and significant endeavor to explore storytelling as a means toward bringing the profound knowledge which we need in the world of global citizenship into education and into all of our lives at this difficult time. We're going to explore a range of story-based activities and storytelling that model different methodologies that support this urgent endeavor. I want to highlight the simplest and most penetrating aspect of storytelling, which is that it is alive, it's dynamic, it is reciprocal, it takes place in the moment and is based on relationship and engagement, where voice, presence, and the narrative story draws listeners into a very special collaboration. Storytelling can promote the ideas of global citizenship, including compassion, empathy, sense of connection, respect for ourselves and others, and a sense of meaning in our lives. It also has the ability to awaken innate capacities for experiencing our abiding connection to everything and everyone in our world. It does this in ways that are often overlooked. Every time someone listens to a story, their imaginations and their emotions are summoned in a communal and unique individual response. Everyone literally creates their own story while they're listening. At the same time, they're sharing a group journey. The unique relationship to the storyteller allows one to feel, to know beyond bias and beyond beliefs, opinions, analysis, and concept. It opens access to the place within us that is shared, intelligent, unconditional, untarnished by bias and opinions. It is this place, stimulated by the storytelling, that moves, as the Maori says, trembles the treasure house of global citizenship experience. So it is a missing piece, and we need it so that people are in a way brought to have what is an innate knowledge that we are part of this world. We can, if we reach this place in ourselves, transform, listen without opinion, feel compassion, respond without aggression or terror, and have a direct realization of causes and consequences that make us responsible citizens, and we can know joy regardless of circumstance, which I think you'll hear in some of our speakers. A story, as you know, can also cause harm. A single story or a single belief refuting all others is actually the engine of genocide, misery, and conflict. A story also, when it is told from the heart, points beyond itself. It awakens the heart. It renders us more contented and decent, dignified human beings. The intelligence uncovered gives us the means to live and to act in difficult times. I'm going to tell you something very simple about a great storyteller from Mali who was in UNESCO for 32 years. He's from Mali. His name was Amadou Hampateba. He's the one who stood up in front of everyone and said, when an old person dies, a library is burned. He said in his masterpiece epic retelling of a whole story called Kaidera, that the storyteller is useful, useless, or a revelation. The same story could produce all three. Useless, not bad, is when a story is merely an anecdote, an entertainment with a little moral that tells you how you should think. It is useful, he said, because it is a psychological journey that engages us in knowing what it is to be a human being, how to take care of ourselves and our world, and the consequences of self-preoccupied actions. He said, when an initiated storyteller speaks from the heart to an audience, it is a revelation, because what's opened inside is the essence of our humanity. It gives us a sense, a knowledge that we belong to something bigger and greater, and our history stretches back to the beginning of time, even before the beginning of time. Storytelling takes courage, and it generates courage, and I think it is a great tool for us to generate not only an understanding, but almost like a trick in which we suddenly realize that we are global citizens. We are different than each other, but not different from each other. Courage, in the old meaning from the 13th century, from the heart. So I think we'll have a wonderful, wonderful day. Sally Suso was going to join us, and he can this morning. Sally is in an old family of generations of griots, which are historians. Traditionally, a griot is given to a chief at the birth of her or him, and knows the history of that person, but knows the history of an entire culture. So that you live in that story, you know who you are. And the sound of the 23 uneven, resonating strings of the harp called kora moves the mind in a particular way. And the sound of his voice and the incantation of the stories he tells, the words are known by his culture, but to us it would be a deep, delicious pleasure and awakening that would move us from any preoccupations and concerns that we have. So apologies from some of you, and you stuck with me for a little longer. Is that okay? So I'm going to tell the story. You ready? I can hear you.
Yes, we are
Okay,
ready.
good. Because the worst thing is to not listen to a story. And we don't listen with our heads, we're listening with our bodies. I want to tell you a story that was given to me by an Israeli Bedouin storyteller. And he came to New York because he was dying, which is a sad piece of the story. And he wanted to see a 99-year-old female Romanian doctor who had the brilliant ability to examine one drop of blood and see root causes of illnesses. And so through that period of time, he actually gained another 6 months of his life. And before he was leaving, he said, Laura, let me give you a gift. And I thought about all the beautiful Arabic suits I loved, and the brooches, and the silk robes, and the jewelry. And then I pulled myself together and I said, if you ever find one single story that you think I must tell, send it to me. You following this? Still here? Okay. So, remember fax machines?
Yeah.
One day, there came a fax, months later, and it said on the top, Laura, this is a story from Turkey. It is a story told inside a story by someone inside another story, inside a bigger story, inside a friend story. I hope you like it. I'm writing to tell you goodbye. There was once a man who was wealthy, and he was obsessed. He wanted to know everything there was to know in the world. He had enough money that he could hire a wealth-seeking servant who could go out into the world and find all the wise people, bring them to him, and he could ask questions, and finally, he could understand everything. One after another, wise people came to his house. He asked questions, and he was never satisfied. Finally, his servant said, you know, there are no wealthy people, there are no, wise people left. And he said, no, how could that be? And the man said, well, there's one. There's a child said to be wise. And I said, child, how could I bring a child? Well, the man said, all right. If I don't like what he says, I'll send him away. So a few days later, a little boy came to the house, and the wealthy man had prepared a complicated story, a profound, sophisticated question. Excuse me. And he asked the little boy, and the little boy's answer was so fresh, so illuminated. The man asked him another complicated question. The answer was brilliant, to the point, simple. He wanted to ask him, he thought he's a child that could keep him in for years. But the little boy got bored. He said, can we play? I said, play? What are we going to play? Well, I said, you hide, I'll find you. I said, look, I know. Magic. You hide, I'll find you. I said, no, you go first. So the man clapped his hands, let's clap our hands. And the man jumped into another world. And the boy said, it's not fair, you're not supposed to hide in the other world. Man came back, said, you hide. The little boy said, okay. Boy clapped his hands, jumped into the man's heart. The man looked in 3 worlds. He looked everywhere. He couldn't find him. Finally he said, where are you? Not far. I can't find you. I'm here. Where are you? I'm here. Come out. Okay. The boy came and said, where were you? The boy said, I was in your heart. If you don't look there first, you'll never know anything. And that's that. We have a substitute speaker as wonderful as Omar Ba.
Oh my gosh, really? Can't possibly be wrong.
That's what Omar said. We believe what he says. And she's from the Sudan. Like Omar, her journey has been incredibly difficult, but she has prevailed. And the result of her extreme experience and suffering has been to develop an amazing compassion and commitment to help her own people and to help children worldwide. There's much to read and know about Ahmed, but let's hear from her and then we'll continue.
Sudan is one of the most beautiful countries I have ever been in. I remember how peaceful it was. I remember when I woke up in the morning, the sun was always so hot. It used to wake me up from the most beautiful dreams I had. I remember how warm it was. I remember warm rain and green grass. I remember families coming in the house and how packed it was. I remember mothers and daughters cooking together, any meal, if it was the breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I remember how loud it was from the traffic. There was always cars driving in and out. I remember our shopping malls and how tight but packed it was. I almost lost my shoe a couple of times just trying to buy groceries. I remember how kind my people were. I remember Sudan as a beautiful place, and I miss it a lot. I miss it every day. I miss the smell of the Red Sea. I miss the smell of the bukhor. It is an insect that we use in Sudan to make the house smell good. I miss the smell of the coffee in the morning. I miss the smell of the mud when it rains. I missed a lot. I missed a lot of how Sudan used to make me feel. It used to make me feel alive. It used to make me feel a part of a community, a part of a whole. I was always surrounded by people. It is something that I enjoyed a lot as a child. I miss it a lot. I miss my friends, my family. It is sad of what is happening in Darfur. It really breaks my heart that this region has been faced with a systematic genocide. And a lot of people in the world don't even know about it, didn't even hear about it. I made this as my life commitment, as my job, to wake up every day and to tell the people that haven't heard of what is happening in Darfur, to hear about it. There's sounds of gunshots everywhere. People are dying almost every minute. And for me, I decided to be that voice that will speak on their behalf. I speak for the 1,000 women who have been speaking for a long time, but no one is listening. I speak for the 1,000 girls who have been speaking for a long time, but no one is listening. And I speak on behalf of so many men, hundreds of men who have been speaking for a long time, but no one is listening. I choose to be their voice so they can be heard. It is my life commitment to let people know what is happening in Darfur and how we can work together to make that part of the region be better. It doesn't matter how it started, but we have the opportunity to choose how it will end, to choose how we can bring this beauty back to this region again. I left when I was a child. I left Sudan and I left Darfur when I was only 10, 11 years old. So I want to remember and I want to visit again. I want to visit this beautiful part. But it won't happen if people don't work together, if we don't work together. My family was so fortunate that we had help. We had help from the United Nations. We had help from our families. We had help from neighbors. We had help from strangers, people that we didn't even know. They spoke up for us, when we didn't have a voice, they were a part of our group, a part of our support system, and that's how I got through it. I really think when you are doing an humanitarian effort, it is a work that cannot be done alone. It is a collective work. It's a work that we all have to put a little part of it. We have to all put small efforts to make this work. So I thank those strangers who helped me and helped my family. I thank organizations like the UNHCR and so many out there who do so much to give basic needs to humans, to give people that have been through so much a second chance in life. Even now that I have sought help and now I'm in a new land and I am safe, I try to do the same thing for new refugees, for people that have been to the similar situation. I work every day to make sure that they also have basic needs. They have things that make them feel like they are a part of a community, a part of a support system. I work every day to ensure that they have what it needs for them to feel alive. I become their voice now, just like how someone was a voice for me, speaking up for me and speaking up for my family. And I don't know how other way to do it other than to work with the community, to work with the group, because I cannot imagine doing all of this hard work by myself. It has to happen as a collective work. And being a human rights activist is not an easy job. It is not just speaking about what is happening in Darfur. It is speaking up for what is right and what is wrong, using our voice as a weapon to stand up for what we believe, our core beliefs. So I have been a community organizer because I know how important it is. I know how many people depend on my voice so that they can continue surviving and continuing to live. So I want you to join my team and hopefully to make our world a better place.
I just looked on my phone. I called her at 3:06 yesterday afternoon to ask her to do this. Omar was just hospitalized yesterday, and I think it's just wonderful that she made arrangements with an E and was able, she had just come home from school, she's a teacher, she just walked in the door, and she's so generous of spirit, and on behalf of all of us, we thank her very much.
Just a comment, she's actually online, so she's gonna join when we are discussing later on.
So I imagine now how powerful it is to hear someone's personal story. And I want to, with great joy, introduce Kim Sykes, who's been working not with people coming from other places, but girls in New York City, and hearing their stories and giving them voice and power and letting us hear their stories. So can you join us? Sure. Let the girls be heard.
Kim represents another change. She's not Jessica Morris. And Jessica is the executive director of Growing Herd, and she's right now in Trinidad, where they're putting on an extravaganza. And Growing Herd is another organization that I could call on to join us in offering a very human presentation of the cognitive and didactic things that we hear about. And so we're always grateful. We're going to have a performance later, and we're so glad that you stepped in and are here with us.
I'm glad to be here. And Jessica sends her greetings. She's in Trinidad, as you say, working with our organization out there, Girl Be Heard in Trinidad, and doing some great work. She's also one of our co-founders at Girl Be Heard. At Girl Be Heard, we work to celebrate, amplify, and develop the stories of young girls in New York City. And currently, most of our participants are immigrants from other countries. Last May, we did our main stage show called Indivisible, Liberty and Justice for Who. And we were rehearsing for a couple of months there, really early on in January, February, and March. And it was at a time where all the girls were in after-school programs, they were doing college exams, they were college entrance exams, SATs, they were busy, and they couldn't make rehearsal. They had everything going on in their life. I, on the other hand, as the artistic director, and I probably should have said that first, and he's like the artistic director, I was in panic. Our show opened in like 3 weeks. I started making decisions for them, which if you like Girl Be Heard, girls will be heard. They make their own decisions, they write their own pieces, they decide how they're gonna do it, they get on stage, they create their work. So after about 3 weeks of that, me just taking control, I get a letter from them saying, we need a meeting. So I go to this meeting, and the littlest one, Jordan, and the youngest, she was chosen to speak for them. So they told me how upset they were that I was making all these decisions for them. They told me that they didn't like that I was taking control, that I was, in fact, editing some of their pieces in a way that they didn't approve of. I listened. Jordan said, and frankly, Kim, we're a little scared of you. And I said to her, well, you know, my husband says the same thing. And we all laughed. And then we talked a little bit more, and I admitted, yeah, that I had sort of, you know, crossed the boundaries out of my panic, trying to get the show together. And then I said, you know, so you have been coming to rehearsals, and you have to admit you could do it wrong. And they did, and they said, yeah, okay, yeah, we get that. We weren't showing up. We were being disrespectful to our fellow cast members. Yeah, okay, we get it. And then after that, after we talked, everything was great. It's a piece of cake. We got through it. But then that night, I thought, wow, we're doing our job, right? You have these girls who all come from a cultural background where it's not good to speak up, right? You're not encouraged to be heard. That's also a very American thing, too. It's not just immigrant families. And I thought, wow, we're doing it. That was scary to speak truth to power, right? I can be scared. I was scary. I can be scary. And yet that little girl said what she had to say. So I think we're doing our job at Girl Be Heard. As I said, we develop, amplify, and celebrate the voices of girls and female identified youth. Our teaching artists do the work of helping them find their voices, and as the artistic director, I help girls find their voices, and I try to help them do it in a global, universal context in order to change minds, encourage action with audiences, policymakers, and people like you. We talk about social justice issues. We try to remember that it's 2 words, social and justice. So what does that mean in the context of our work at Girl Be Heard? For me, it's coming together, working together. It means listening to each other. It means having others hear it, see you while you're saying it, taking it in. It means research, finding facts, discovering common ground with girls and women, not just here in New York, but around the world. Justice is speaking truth to power. It's not holding back. It's calling out the problems that you see. Because, as I said before, people are always trying to keep us quiet. A couple of years ago, I worked as the Director of Special Projects at the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women. And it was at the time where we were trying to get Backpage to close down. And we would have, every week, we would have rallies and picket lines outside of the Village Voice. And we would invite this woman, this survivor, to come in and speak. And she would come in and we'd be outside. She'd stand on a little podium and she told her story. Well, as you can imagine, her story was pretty horrific. And she did it the same way every time. She'd get up and, I was 12, this is what happened to me. I was on Backpage, this is what they did to me. And as she told the story, you could see her whole body shake. You could see it just like uncontrollably shake. And it was the rage, and it was the shame, and it was the self-pity, the anger, it was all that just trying to come out, She did that for us about 3 times. And the last time she did it, I grabbed her hand on stage and I said, that's the last time you tell that story. And I said that because, I really think that sometimes it can be voyeuristic for girls, certain girls and women, that they have to deal with the story first themselves, right? Writing it down, bringing it into their heart, seeing it themselves before they can actually give it away. Years before that, I myself wrote a story around my own life. I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. And when I was a little girl, right above my father's chair, there was a hole in the wall. And I remember I would always stand on the chair and I would play with it, right? Just something, I was bored. We had 3 books in the house. I think it was the Bible, The Joy of Cooking, and a Reader's Digest. That was like from 1952 or something. No books. Put it out of my mind. And he flew out of this hole. My mother would always say, can we leave that alone? And at Christmas time, she'd always try to patch it up with a little putty, some kind of thing that would always fall out. So after my mother died, my Aunt Evelyn and I were sitting at the kitchen table, and she told me about the story of the hole. She said, one day, my father shot at your mother and missed. And I stood there and I took that in, and my whole body shook, just like my friend Joy. And I remember, what? I wrote that story down. And the first time I told it, I shook. Second time I told it, not so much so. Third time, I rewrote it, kept writing it. And now I can tell that story. Now I can give it away. But it took a long time to get there. So when we see girls at Girl Be Heard, sometimes they come in with stories like that. And we're really careful with them. I try not to push them out before they're ready. And I also think that it's important that they see how that story connects to other girls and other stories in other places. Because knowing someone else is also going through that helps you to tell the story better. And you're not alone. And also, most importantly, it makes action. It makes change. Thank you.
I want to mention, if it's okay, at the close of our DPINGO conference in August, we had, I don't know how many people in the audience, and Girl Be Heard performed 3 young women. And it was, I have goosebumps now remembering it, because the audience was filled with professionals from all over the world, a little bit weary after 2 days of a very intense conference on the last day. And the program closed with these girls. And what they did was so magnificent and powerful that although their stories were each unique based on their own experience, they were so universally human that every single person in the audience, black, white, tall, thin, whatever they were, identified heart to heart the way you spoke before, and we were really all one and left that way. So I thank you, Kim and Jessica and all of your staff, for creating that miracle of transforming raw emotion into human experience with which we can all connect, and then transforming that experience into action, because indeed it was a catalyst and continues to be for so many of us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Holly. Well, let's actually look at now a different kind of story, a visual story. Stories are made of images, but in our world, we have film, we have documentaries, we have digital storytelling that allow us to visually really join in stories. And this is a remarkable action. This is a story put into action. Mr. Charles Roncontra, Lakota Sioux sculpture, his wife, Miss Alida Roncontra da Silva, who's a writer. They created a documentary of a sculpture, traditionally based sculpture that they created at Standing Rock.
We are artists who are actively engaged with our communities in New Mexico, as well as back home. For my people, the Lakota, the Black Hills in South Dakota represent the heart of all that is. There is a phrase in Lakota, Mitakuye Oyasin, and its meaning is about how to engage with the world around us every day. It is not something separate like a theoretical or a conceptual framework. Mitakuye Oyasin means all my relations, or we are all related. When we say it, we acknowledge that we are related to everything and everyone, and everything has a spirit.
When a human being lives with a sense of relationship to all of life becomes the us or the we, and we stop thinking in terms of us and them. Relationship comes with responsibility, care for those we are connected to. To say Mitakuye Oyasin means to honor the reality that no one does this alone. Everything counts, every being is alive, including the rocks and the wind, and to give thanks to our relatives is part of how we all have the capacity to recognize relationship with this world, with all that provides what we need, that allows us to continue. In 2009, after many discussions around what this work would represent, Charles and I started a piece, Not Afraid to Look. Not Afraid to Look is a monument, currently 2 concrete monuments. One is at Standing Rock. This piece remains as a gift to the people, as tribute of a history of people coming together, and as a reminder that this work is critical, that we must continue to come together for things that are vital to our communities. The second monument sits in a field in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We are giving that piece to honor the earth as they continue their work to uphold Native sovereignty and the rights of all communities to have clean water.
In 2016, I traveled to North Dakota to build a monument to commemorate the water protectors at Standing Rock. I was asked to build it on a bluff overlooking the convergence of the Cannonball and Missouri rivers. It was the lookout of the original water protectors, where everything could be seen: the Ochete Shakawee Camp, the Sacred Stone Camp, and the Dakota Access Pipeline construction sites. My days at the camp were long 14-hour days of working on the concrete monument. I woke to the melodies of my relatives' prayer songs, praying for water and for life. Traveling on the wind, I heard the voices and languages from the thousands of people who came together to pray. I built Not Afraid to Look out of the need to honor who we are as fearless Lakota people. I built it for my relatives who pray and stand together for water and for the future. The original Not Afraid to Look carvings were carved by my ancestors and were gifted to U.S. treaty delegates who came to the plains during the time of Manifest Destiny. These pipes were titled, Not Afraid to Look the White Man in the Face. My ancestors saw that the white man represented grave changes for our people. This was the time of the Indian Wars, of forced relocation and land grabs, the killing of the buffalo and the buffalo culture of my people, and the brutal taking of our children to become civilized. The original figure, not afraid to look the white man in the face, faced what he saw, the rubbing out of the people, yet through the figure carved on the pipe, my ancestors stated that they were not afraid to face what was before them. Culturally, they did not fear death. Death was simply the beginning of the next dream.
Today, Not Afraid to Look projects are about facing what is calamitous to us, to all of our relatives. It is also about introducing a way of engaging with the world that is not based upon fear as the motivator of our actions. Today, we have peace that is filled with fear. We have nation-states pointing their armaments at each other in a deadlock of weapons that somehow force them to hold a peace based upon the threat of war. Is it possible for us as a species to find a peace that is free, that has no fear in its makeup? Charles and I consider Monsanto, Fukushima, the U.S. southern border, Palestine, and Wall Street as possible locations where people may want to look and to face without fear how these places represent serious issues for us. We see that the monuments we are working to bring with community are art. We see how people coming together are also the art. We see art is a living process that responds to what is happening. Our work is part of that movement of our communities asking all of us to face and engage with what we have endured, with what we face today, named or unnamed, what surrounds us, the imbalances as well as our potentials.
Mitakuye Oyasin.
So grateful to Georgie for bringing this to us. And that included, as part of our story, is the story of our earth and our responsibility as protectors. So we really are wanting to use the rest of our time in 3 ways, and one is having a small, spontaneous storytelling with each other, and then questions and some conversation about what your takeaways are from today and what questions you have, knowing that this is the first of probably many explorations we're going to make about this important issue. Then we're really going to hear about the significant day of education and how we can all be part of it. And we will close with a remarkable performance of one of the girls from Girls in Group. So, how are you doing?
Good.
Did we move you? Good. If you can turn to somebody who's next to you, and this takes a little unabashed activity, and if anybody doesn't have a partner, then you raise your hand and we will have a temporary arranged marriage. So just turn to somebody. My partner's Holly. Quick, don't be shy, or be shy and do it anyway. And so I would like, here's the topic. Could you tell this person, I guess it started already. Hey, hold on. I guess shyness didn't last long. Okay, here's your story topic. Hold on. Once you get to know each other's name really quickly, I'd like you to tell your partner about a time that you heard or told a story in your life. You have 3 minutes each. So just big decision, who goes first, who goes second. Now this is how we solve the world's problem. And then I will say pause, and partner two, you will speak to your partner. Okay, Avanti. Partner two, can you tell a small story about the story to your partner? I know we opened up the huge box. Ladies and gentlemen. I think I opened up a huge box. Maybe one day we can have this workshop extended over 3 or 4 days and then you can finish your stories. But here's one question before we go on. You've heard some stories, very, very different kinds of stories, and you've now been speaking with each other. It takes time, attention, listening. It's beautiful to hear this gorgeous rumble of your voices. What happened to you? Not what you think about storytelling, but what happened to your body, your mind, your attention, your feelings, while you listened or told the story? Just really ordinary things. What happened to you? The more we become aware of this, the more we can bring it to our children with tremendous confidence and not try to tell them what they think we need them to know. Regina.
I felt great joy in exchanging the stories we told each other.
Beautiful. Joy, that's important, yes.
I felt that my body like with her, that was more open, as we went for this year, off or whatever, my body language was a bit more open.
The body felt open, receptive, and giving. Beautiful, yes.
I felt as if everything else in the room melted away.
As if everything else in the room melted away. It's a good one for our world. Yes. What?
A sense of concentration.
A sense of concentration. What more? Stretch your body to think.
Leaping into the unknown, because the assignment you gave us to tell a story. So we had to really kind of like, screw up our courage and just say something, just begin a story.
Beautiful. Leaping into the unknown. I mean, that's what holds us. We always want to know what's going to happen next. It's a good story, isn't it? Yeah, beautiful. Yes.
What we shared here is terrifying. Yeah. It wanted to make my body vibrate, like Sister said, because it is the story of all the conflict and confusion in Africa. It started with the way I'm dressed. That this is telling a whole lot of stories. I said, yes, I need to be visible because we need a lot of attention. And then she now told me that Ebola is running Africa again. With what we're already into, and to hear about Ebola, honestly, I said the world must join us together to stop this.
Thank you. But it is actually through word of mouth like that, where we not only hear the information, we're not far away anymore. We become you and feel it. And that brings us to action. Thank you.
So I was talking to Justine and she told me her story of how Ebola has changed everything in Africa. That people no longer shake hands, they no longer kiss. It's very difficult to interact with people. And this is something that I had no idea about. So I will be in Africa next week talking with people at the Visitors Conference, and I can take this story with me to impact on that region. So thank you for sharing.
It doesn't hear that because that's a really important aspect of sharing our stories. That we go somewhere, in a sense, adorned with and fed by the truth of an experience, not by data. So that's what a story gives us. Just like Ahmed's story also. The story of Standing Rock. Anyone else? What happened? Anything? Yes.
It's more an observation here. I was a little frustrated actually by the idea that there's so many stories being told, and there's so many. You can go on YouTube, and there's so many stories being presented there, and they're really moving and inspirational. And then you take a look at how many people see or hear. And the question is, if I understand here, part of the purpose of today is stories can move the world. Stories can change the world. But in reality here, there are so many stories that are not changing the world because the message isn't getting out. They're not being heard. So one of the things I look at here is to say, is there a way to be able to go and figure out how to make the stories result in the actions that are going to maybe eliminate the occurrence of stories that are really sad, because we don't learn from the stories prior to that.
Well, I think now we're walking in a very, very mulchy field. And we don't have the time to address that, but I would say one of the things we're talking about is discovering the difference between stories that obscure truth and that isolate and stir up aggression. And what is a story, which is what we're going to have to recognize first. What is a story and how do we tell them that does allow for transformation? Thank you. I'm going to stop, although I'm sure this is a room that is so filled with insight and projects and amazing stories and solutions. But we have Ahmed with us here. So is there anyone who would like to ask her a particular question, because she's here to answer that?
I would.
Yes.
So, hi Ahmed. Thank you for telling your story. So is there any programming there for young girls? Is there any programming there that you guys are doing for young girls and boys?
Does anyone else have a question? We have only a few minutes. Yes.
I was wondering if you were going to share or talk about the type of structure that you were talking about, so stories and how we structure them for transformation. So is there...
Well, we don't have the time to do that, but Uni and myself and Holly have been talking, and so afterwards we are going to send some PDFs to everyone, which will include bibliography and references. I'm going to put in a how to tell a story guide. By the way, those CDs, please take one. They came from my publisher, and they're yours to take and use in your situation. This is our seed event. So thank you for that tremendous interest. I wish we had many hours to talk about that.
So we'll follow up.
Okay, you can speak, please. We can hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome, great. Yes, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for allowing me to share my story with you guys. Actually, I'm gonna get up and close my door. This is my classroom, so I'm able to
She became a teacher.
She's a
Yes.
teacher, yes.
Yes, I teach 6th grade ELL, and I've been a teacher. This is my 4th year teaching.
So
I think the question was, is
answered
there any small groups here for young girls and boys? Was that the question?
Yes.
Yes. Well, in Portland, Maine is it's one of the smallest states in the U.S., if you guys know, and so the population is not a lot. So especially the young population, a lot of young people, they graduate from college, they move to New York, to Boston, to neighborhood cities and states that are cities and states that are bigger. So in our state, we have a lot of groups, and that's why I started my own group to inspire the girls to stay here, to start organizations, and to start groups that we don't have.
Thank you so much. I wish we had an immense amount of time. We only have a few minutes left. So I'd like to invite Kim. What is the name of our young woman from Girl Be Heard?
I think she's going to introduce herself.
Okay, so get ready. Here we go. Thank you so much.
I'm Shani de Los Angeles, and today I'll be performing a piece entitled When I Think of Change. So me and this Puerto Rican chick are chilling on the block, right? And we're just a couple kids making something out of nothing. And I'll never forget this moment, because it was the first time I had ever experienced the discomfort of being both black and Latina at the age of 6, when she looks up at me and goes, "But why you got hair like that?" And even at that age, my ego got in my way. So I waited till I got home. I waited till I was in my mother's arms to cry. And I just kept crying and crying until the words could finally come out, "Mommy, why do I look like this?" And she hugs me, assures me she'll take care of the problem. "Don't worry," she says. "Mañana, we just take you to the salon." People always ask me, what kind of change do I want to see in this world? In this country, in this government, in this president? But when I think about change, I never start with the world. I start in my own community. I start in my home. I start with my mother. In my dreams, I get a mommy who looks like me, a black mother who sings to me. I picture us on the sand. She's showing me the scars on her back she's been hiding for 20 years, but in my dreams, she teaches me how she learned to love them. She tells me to look at my scars. Kiss them, she says. Keep kissing until you start to love them too. In my dreams, my mommy picks her afro out so big, she blocks out the sun, and yet I'm still blinded by all this light. Like, she got me thinking there is no difference between God and woman. Like, she got me thinking, well, if that's what carried me for 9 months, then what kind of magic am I made out of? She takes her pick and hands it to me, dares me to feel the weight of the world. In my dreams, my mother explains our hair. She says it carries the lives of women before you. That's why it's so big. "Hay sangre en tu pelo," she whispers. "There's blood in your hair. And it carries the lives of women before you." But you see, that's the thing about dreams. Eventually, I gotta wake my ass up to a mother who does not look like me, to a mother who would vote for Trump again if she could, to a mother who says beauty is from within as she slaps the relaxer on her roots, to a mother who's never known how to love herself black, to a mother who's never known how to love me in my blackness. So when I learned to love myself by myself, I couldn't help but see all the parts of me killed along the way. Now I understand why they say a black girl loving herself is a deadly act. Sandra Bland taught me that. Hay sangre en mi pelo. There's blood in my hair. And it carries the lives of women before me. When I'm forced to be awake, I see what this country is. And I see what it ain't. And when people ask me, What kind of change do I want to see in this world? I just say, it starts with my mother, and it ends in my dreams with a mommy who looks like me. And damn, does she love herself? Does she love herself fiercely? Thank you.
Okay. No words. So let's close today, because we actually have to be out of here, with hearing about one of our next big steps and something that you can participate in, which is a day devoted to global citizenship and education. So Winnie and Scott.
Scott's gonna briefly talk about the background and the initiative. And if you give me 5 minutes, I will show you the video about that.
It's a special video too. I hope you enjoyed this. This has certainly been a bit eclectic, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but it's all been about storytelling. I hope you've been following that narrative. And I hope you understand that we're trying to connect the mind, the heart, and connect each of us. And I think even begin a conversation, a sharing of stories where we connect to each other in those ways. So I'd like to just share a couple of words from Martin Luther King Jr. He wrote a long time ago, we should have done a better job all these decades to understand and live what he taught us a long time ago. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And this, I think, really speaks to the spirit of why global citizenship is so urgent today. It's not a kind of feel-good kind of movement. It's not a, we can turn a spotlight on the horrors of the world. There's nothing wrong with either of those, but there's something deeper, something academics call ontological, meaning that this is actually the hard wiring of reality. We don't understand this part of reality, that we're all actually of one, but we're trying, we're here, we're trying. And with that as preface, I'd like to invite you, if you're not familiar with the International Day of Education for Global Citizenship Facebook page, to just look us up on Facebook, IDEGC.org. And we're working with many of you already to get the missions of the United Nations more deeply connected to this idea of global citizenship, the importance of this as an educational theme, a set of competencies that should be introduced in schools around the world. And it really should be taught in all domains of learning, in the schools, out of the schools. So we're trying to outreach to missions. We need your help to do that. And we also, all of us who have put this event together, will also have a survey so you can provide us some feedback on today. We really, really welcome your responses to that. And with that, is that video ready? Yeah. Okay.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to join you today in celebrating a call for the United Nations International Day of Education for Global Citizenship.
They say knowledge is power, and I believe that to be true. In a world slowly shifting towards meritocracy, education is the key to success. It is the great equalizer. But how equal can something be if it is not offered to everyone?
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It gives the state of Qatar great pleasure to co-host today's celebration for International Day of Education for Global Citizenship.
Global citizenship education is essential in our collective efforts to find solutions to our common challenges, to promote sustainable development and human rights.
So I want to say how excited I am to think about the great wisdom that could be brought to children all over the world and at all different levels of education, and how meaningful that would be. Our unfinished task of ensuring that every child has an education.
The global citizen education is not about uniformity. Rather, it is intended to make sure that each and every culture and person can be respected the way it is.
Mindset approach and also worldview and perspective and perception approach is fundamental approach. I believe this is the only solution to tackle important global issues, including conflict, violence, and even war.
It's about teaching those young people how to live those values locally, while also teaching them how to think globally.
Young people should understand the interconnections and synergies between the local and the global, and be morally responsible towards humankind and the world at large. In addition, Qatar has strived to contribute to a more peaceful and prosperous world by integrating education, culture, cultural diversity, and intercultural dialogue into development thinking and practice.
The global citizenship education is actually learning about sustainable development itself. This by itself is a huge task.
Global citizenship education, an overarching goal encompassing all 17 goals and 169 targets.
There is no doubt that equitable and universal access to quality education greatly contributes to all dimensions of sustainable development, economic, social, and environmental. It generates greater economic returns for individual societies, creates impact on employment, health, gender equality, and economic growth. Likewise, it leads to safer, more resilient, and peaceful societies.
Officially closed, but I really want to thank, and she's remarkable beyond belief. We would all agree on that. She produces documents and materials and videos, and she's just a blessing for us all. Thank you.
Actually, I come here to hear them, but very thankful. Thank you so much. We all work together, but I just wanted to make sure why we are emphasizing International Day of Education for Global Citizenship. As you all felt, global citizenship is not subject matter. It is about fundamental grounding philosophy and guideline for us to have to make the better world. It can be implemented throughout the whole subject matter, but importantly, you need to know what's going on around you and then the world, But most importantly, you should feel how others will feel in their field of work or their situation. And then that feeling, empathy and compassion will make things happen. They want to do something. Actually, William asked a very good question. We are sharing the story, then what is the result? Actually, this story is very powerful because it really infused the compassion, making people want to do something. Actually, the speaker, she is speaking up for many people who are having a difficult time, but she's not just speaking. By speaking, she's engaging people to work together on her journey. So I really want to make sure International Day will promote this type of education activity furthermore. So we hope everybody join and they work together to make this day established and furthermore work together in collaboration. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you everybody.
And thank you to Donna and Holly for a wonderful job today.
Thank you so much. And then we are going to send out all the material by the follow-up email. Everybody reserved, right?
Yes.
RSVP. Okay, if you came here without reservation, please come to us and give us email address. Otherwise, we are going to send all the information. Thank you.
And if you have suggestions for projects, bibliographies, please send it to us. And we will include that so that we are all pooling. And thank you so much for your incredible presence and commitment.